Good evening, I'm Klaudia Czerwińska and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. After a bumpy start, Germany's new chancellor embarked on his first official visits, first to France and then to Poland, meeting Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk in Warsaw. This is a significant move pointing to the future importance of Warsaw-Berlin relations. We'll have more on that in just a moment, but first, let's take a look at tonight's headlines. After officially joining the conclave, the Cardinals vote to choose a new pontiff. Xi Jinping arrives in Moscow for a 4-day-long state visit ahead of the Victory Day parade. Polish foreign minister hosts his EU counterparts in Warsaw.
See you.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
133 cardinals began voting to choose the 267th Pope of the Catholic Church. Much like the pontificate of Pope Francis before it, the conclave is expected to feature unprecedented moments as the cardinals discuss who will succeed the late pontiff, often known for his progressive and unorthodox approach. Cardinals have already entered the Sistine Chapel and swore an oath of secrecy on the Gospel. Additionally, cell phone service within the territory of the Vatican has been turned off to prevent anyone from the outside contacting the participants. After their oath, a process of discussions and mediations begin. If the vote doesn't yield a 2/3 majority needed to elect the new pope, the cardinals go back to their quarters in Casa Santa Marta for dinner. It is then and there, on the sidelines of the conclave, that important conversations among the cardinals take place and consensus begins to form around certain names. Although there is no way of knowing whether this will be a long or short conclave, cardinals are aware that prolonging the proceedings could be seen as a sign of rifts and disagreements between the highest-ranking officials of the Catholic Church. Following a wobbly victory in the second vote to become the next Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz made Poland his second official visit on his schedule. Our chief political correspondent, Aaron Damon, is on the ground and joins us now. Good evening, Aaron. So what is the significance of this meeting, as Poland is the second country after France that the new Chancellor decided to visit?
Good evening, Claudia. Well, after that Berlin bombshell yesterday, Friedrich Merz is getting down to business, and that means, like you say, that he's been here in Warsaw tonight meeting with his Polish counterpart Donald Tusk. You can see, actually, the German delegation is just moments away from leaving the Prime Minister's chancellery. And in the last hour, the pair spoke to media. Here's what Donald Tusk had to say.
The fact that on your first day in office you found time to visit both Paris and Warsaw demonstrates very clearly how important Polish-German relations are for the future of Europe and thus for the future of the world, how important a strong Europe is. And Europe will only be strong if we take joint responsibility for it.
Poland is one of Merz's first pit stops since he became the Chancellor of Germany, visiting a country that Germany has had historically a strained and tested relationship. Of course, in recent times, that strain has come from the issue of migration and Germany setting up border controls in the Schengen zone. So Donald Tusk made his feelings clear.
I am very happy that we are jointly looking for solutions that are symmetric and European. Our attention should be focused on maintaining Schengen. I understand the need for increased control, but the increased control should be primarily directed toward protecting the external borders of the European Union.
The war in Ukraine has also been top of Friedrich Merz's mind. Earlier, he was at the Élysée Palace in Paris with French President Emmanuel Macron, and it was there where he struck a cautious tone over what security guarantees could look like in Ukraine.
Until there is a permanent ceasefire and such an agreement with Russia, we cannot say anything about the extent of the security guarantees we are giving Ukraine, because we simply do not yet know the conditions.
Look, Claudia, Merz's diplomatic blitz comes at a pivotal point. Yes, the war in Ukraine, but also America straying away from Europe and, of course, Donald Trump's tariff thunder. Friedrich Merz is set to make his first official phone call to Donald Trump tomorrow as he tries to convince Europe and the world that Germany is back. Claudia.
Thank you so much. From in front of the Prime Minister's Chancellery in Warsaw, this was Aaron Damon. As one of the most important events of the presidency of the Council of the EU, a two-day meeting of European foreign ministers kicked off in Warsaw. Even though the talks are not made public, make no mistake, the meeting is where crucial decisions are being made for the future of EU foreign policies. Unsurprisingly, one of the key points on today's agenda was Ukraine. Kazimierz Łysiak was on site and has more in his next report.
All eyes are on Warsaw as EU foreign ministers have gathered here for the two-day informal Gymnich summit. It is one of the most important events of any presidency in the Council of the European Union. The name comes from the location of the first event of its kind. And for Poland, which currently holds the rotating presidency in the Council of the European Union, security is one of the most important issues. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski at the Warsaw Security Forum said that it is high time for Europe to take the responsibility for its own safety.
Just EU members on a peacetime footing have a joint military budget that is 2.5 times Russia's on a war footing. So deterring Russia should not be beyond our capacity with some American assistance. The nuclear deterrence, intelligence, targeting information and so on.
These talks are happening right here in the Polish Army Museum and are informal in nature. So what do we know about them? Let's start with what happened here on Wednesday. The UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy has met here with the EU foreign ministers. According to a British MP, they talked a lot about the war in Ukraine.
So I think it's threefold. There's firstly a recognition that the new American administration is dialing back from Europe. So how do we handle that? How do we look after our own security? The second one is Ukraine. That war continues on. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to support a ceasefire, or are we going to give them finally the equipment, the weapon systems that they need to win? And then thirdly, there's the existential threat that we're now seeing from Russia, this revisionist approach of Putin wanting to expand his influence over Eastern Europe. What are we going to do about that?
But the most important discussions will be taking place on Thursday, when the EU foreign ministers will be discussing their approach to the war in Ukraine, how to keep supporting Kyiv and how to achieve a just and lasting peace. They will also be meeting with the ministers from countries which want to join the European Union in the future, not only Ukraine, but also the Balkan states like Moldova and Bosnia and Herzegovina. From Warsaw, TVP World, I'm Kazimierz Łysiak.
Ukrainian drones were active in Moscow for a third day on Wednesday, forcing most of the airports in Russia's capital to close just hours before Chinese President Xi Jinping was due to fly in for a lavish visit that Kyiv has made clear it opposes. During his 4-day visit in Russia, the Chinese leader is also set to attend the May 9th Victory Day military parade. Alex Sumlinsky reports.
A close Chinese-Russian relationship has been developing for a while now, as Russia wages its war in Ukraine for a 4th year.
We finally received information that China is supplying weapons to the Russian Federation. Today, we have general information from our security services with intelligence on gunpowder and artillery deliveries.
But now, with US President Donald Trump launching a trade war with China, the ties between Beijing and Moscow are growing even deeper, and experts warn that it is not good news for Europe.
And the fact that China is not capitalizing on expanding its ties with the EU during this trade war tells us volumes about what Xi thinks of this ultimately for the geostrategic purposes of Beijing. He views the partnership with Russia as more important than taking advantage of this tariff war.
Ahead of the May 9th commemorations of World War II's Victory Day, Putin proposed a 3-day ceasefire with Kyiv, a move Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called a theatrical performance, and once again voiced his support for an earlier US proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. Of only 2 European politicians that had been expected to attend, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić arrived in Russia on Wednesday afternoon. The question still remains if Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico will attend.
Many people who are coming this time to the Red Square, they actually act in a very pragmatic way. They understand that for Putin, that's extremely valuable participation, and they want to make deals and extract more money and more value from this relationship. And in particular, in Chinese example, it's already announced that they would be discussing Power of Siberia 2 pipeline.
Xi and Putin are trying to show themselves as alternative leaders to the US, even as Beijing ramps up its aggression in the South China Sea and toward Taiwan, as Russia continues its war in Ukraine.
China is learning from this war. They need those lessons because the very next war of China, God forbid, with Taiwan, may require those lessons. And especially it's related to drones warfare, and the Chinese right now making a very ambitious drones project called Unpenetrable Wall.
Experts also warn that a growing Chinese-Russian relationship highlights a strong show of unity between the two countries at a time when U.S. President Donald Trump's foreign policy has shaken global alliances and geopolitical partnerships.
China plays a critical role in being an enabler of the Putin regime and an enabler of this war. And we need to be very clear that China is no friend of democracy, is no friend of the West, is no friend of Europe, and thinking otherwise would only lead us to an additional trap.
As the outcome of Xi and Putin's meetings in the days ahead are still to be seen, they are already sending the message that China and Russia are as aligned as ever. Alex Zemlinsky, TVP World.
This evening, Russia launched a drone and ballistic missile attack on Kyiv. 2 people have been confirmed dead. To learn more, we now go live to our Kyiv correspondent, Oz Katerji. Good evening, Oz. So another attack took place. Could you please provide us with an update on what happened?
Sure. Attacks across Ukraine, very large scale drone attack. In fact, there is an air raid warning going on as we speak right now, indicating more Russian drones, maybe missiles, are on the way. So 187 drones launched by Russia on the targets of Ukraine, and 4 ballistic missiles that many were targeted towards Kyiv. 2 people killed, their mother and her son. But we've had 14 people killed in Russian attacks across Ukraine over the last 24 hours, 54 people injured. So to break that down, 2 killed in Kharkiv, 4 in Sumy, 4 killed in Donetsk, and 2 killed in Kherson, as well as those 2, mother and the son, that were killed in Kyiv. So another bitter day for the Ukrainians dealing with these attacks, while Putin is in public greeting world leaders that are arriving in Moscow for Victory Day. And as we speak, more air raid alerts happening in Ukraine, while he is trying to sell to the world that he's offering some sort of Victory Day ceasefire. There is no sign of that at the moment, and there are just more and more of these attacks taking place. If anything, the Russian attacks have stepped up in velocity since these talks between the United States and Russia have begun. We are no closer to any kind of ceasefire agreement, but more and more civilians are dying day in, day out from these attacks. President Zelensky strongly condemned the overnight attacks, saying only a significant increase in pressure on Russia and strengthening of the sanctions can give way to diplomacy.
As the evening continues, there could be possibly more attacks, so Oz, stay safe. This was Oz Katerji reporting live from Kyiv. The political battle in Romania continues after the first round of presidential elections was won by far-right George Simion. The second round of elections is to be held on May 18th. Trailing behind him is centrist Nicușor Dan, who might have a hard time catching up to Simion. We're now joined live by our correspondent Paweł Trzaskowski, who is in Bucharest. So, Paweł, good evening. We are soon to see the debates take place. I bet the emotions are definitely running high. So what are the latest developments? Tell us more.
Well, Romania is still recovering from a deep political crisis it put itself in 5 months ago with the annulment of the first round of presidential elections. Now the country has not only an interim president, but starting from this week, an interim government, and both are expected to be changed after the second round of presidential elections, in which, as you rightly mentioned, George Simion will be facing Nicușor Dan. Actually, today, Romania's interim president addressed Romanians and asked them that upon casting their votes, they should think about Romania and its place in the European Union. Please listen.
The quiet times are over. Each Romanian who will go to vote could write history. In almost 2 weeks, every Romanian that goes to vote will for sure write history. My request for all is to vote in accordance with your consciousness, but you should all think about Romania's status in the world. Think about dignity, think about working people, think about normality. All these things mean a European Romania, a working Romania, a Romania that understands that performance can only be made with reliability, not with scandal.
And it is Nicușor Dan who is believed to be the pro-European candidate, a mayor of Bucharest who ran as an independent and narrowly made it to the second round with about 21% of the votes. And in the second round, he will be facing George Simion, a leader of the right-wing Our Party who took part in the failed 2024 elections with moderate success. But over these 5 months, he consolidated the votes of the Romanian right. He also gained support from abroad, also from the Polish right-wing Law and Justice Party, and he emerged victorious from the first round of presidential elections on Sunday with more than 40% of the votes. And he is believed to be a Eurosceptic with his eyes on the US, on Donald Trump, on the Make America Great Again movement, and he promises that if elected president, he will strengthen ties with the United States. Please listen.
United States is Romania's most significant partner in terms of security and defense, while the European Union represents our country's largest economic partner. Should I be elected president of Romania, my ambition is to elevate the economic partnership with the United States to a level of importance commensurated with our military
The runoff is scheduled to happen on May the 18th, but until it happens, there will be a series of debates with both candidates. These will be Simion's first, as he refused to take part in any ahead of the first round of presidential elections. Back to you, Claudia.
Thank you. That was Paweł Trzaskowski reporting live from Bucharest. And now I would like to invite you for an interview conducted by our colleague Maciej Mikos with Mihai Popșoi, Moldova's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister during the Warsaw Security Forum. The two spoke about Moldova's EU integration in light of the upcoming elections set to take place in September. Enjoy.
Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos. We're at the Warsaw Security Forum Public Dialogue 2025, and our very special guest is Moldova's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mihai Popșoi. Good afternoon. So, let's start with the elections just across the border. So, pro-Russian George Simion has won the first round of the presidential elections in Romania. He is also persona non grata in your country. And in your country, he has gained the third result amongst all the candidates that the Romanian diaspora was voting for. Now, does he pose a real threat to Chișinău?
Well, as a foreign minister, it's not particularly good to comment on internal political affairs of a neighborly, even though very close country to us, Romania. But as a citizen of Romania, I can also say that of course, these elections are incredibly important, and we hope that a candidate that is firmly anchored in the Euro-Atlantic space prevails. When it comes to the interdiction to George Simion, this is a decision of the Moldovan institutions going back 7, 8 years ago. This has been challenged in courts, and there is a court proceeding scheduled for the next few weeks. And the Moldovan legal system will have to decide. I'm not particularly keen in interjecting myself or politicians in general when it comes to issues pertaining to justice. So we'll see what the courts decide, but we definitely wish for Romania to remain firmly anchored into the Euro-Atlantic space.
But wasn't this decision, the ban on him entering Moldova, prolonged in like a year ago?
Yes, it was. That was a decision of the relevant Moldovan institutions pertaining to national security. I'm not privy to the details of the file, but I would assume that if the decision was to prolong, then there is a significant concern there, going back to the initial decision of 2017-2018.
This September, Moldovans will elect a new parliament. Given the lessons learned in Romania during the annulled presidential elections and during the presidential elections in Moldova as well, how prepared are you to counter the Russian hybrid threat?
We are more prepared than we were a year ago, and we will be more prepared in September than we are now. We are constantly adapting, constantly building our defenses, and we managed to withstand the onslaught of propaganda and interference in the previous election. We are confident that we'll be able to do the same in the upcoming elections, which is a testament to the resilience of Moldovan society and Moldovan people and Moldovan institutions. And it's also a testament to the incredible cooperation and support that we receive from our partners in the European Union, in the United States, and of course, the closest, the immediate friends from Romania, Poland, the Baltic states have always been by our side. And the support that we are getting to consolidate our institutions, to be more effective in combating disinformation, to build our cyber defenses, gives us confidence that we'll be able to withstand the pressure that and the blackmail and the threats that the Kremlin is putting us under. And we will come out of every challenge and every test stronger than we were before.
Right, that's one side of this coin. And how will you convince your voters to stay on the pro-European path?
If only we had the choice or the means to show all of our citizens the incredible life that you have here in Poland, the incredible transformation that you have gone through in the past 20 years. And the same goes for our Baltic friends and all the countries that have joined the European Union more recently or earlier. This is the best argument. Because Russian propaganda would have you believe that Poland is still living somewhere in the Middle Ages and the Baltic countries are barely surviving, when in fact the reality is starkly different from what the propaganda would have you believe. Unfortunately, many of our citizens fall victim to this propaganda. But we are more and more successful in showing the reality as it is, with the help of media, with the help of taking some opinion leaders from regions like Gagauzia and other regions from Moldova to see the incredible transformation of small communities in Poland and the services that a small mayoralty is able to provide to its citizens, the quality of infrastructure, the quality of economic development. So these are the strong arguments when it comes to European integration, being able to truly deliver in terms of increasing the quality of life, consolidating democratic institutions, improving the living standards. So again, if only we had the capacity to bring more and more Moldovans to see the transformation that the members of the European Union have gone through. But then, of course, there is a large Moldovan diaspora all over Europe, including in Poland, which I'll be very glad to meet in the next few days. They are the best and the strongest proponents of European integration because they live in Europe and they see for themselves the quality of democratic institutions, the quality of life. And of course, more and more Moldovans are realizing that the future of Moldova lies in Europe, and the result of European referendum in Moldova speaks volumes that despite the enormous attempts by the Kremlin to sabotage our European path, the majority of the Moldovan people have said loud and clear, where they want to see the future of their children and their families. And that is clearly in the European Union, along with our European friends, together with the European nations like Poland, like our Baltic friends, our Romanian brothers. So the decision is clear.
Right. In this regard, what are your expectations from this meeting in Warsaw you're taking part in?
Our expectation is simple, to try to see a way forward, a way towards peace in Ukraine that has a direct impact on the Republic of Moldova, and at the same time to see more and more clarity when it comes to our European path. We have started this incredibly important and consequential process. We have the enormous support of our partners in the European Union, and we are very much optimistic that in light of the reforms that we are doing at home, which are ultimately in the interest of our citizens, but also help us advance onto the European path, we will make significant progress in that regard, and we count on the support and partnership of our friends in Europe.
And lastly, briefly, Moldova is a neutral country. It is written in Moldova's constitution, but given the recent tensions, given the war raging on in Ukraine, are you maybe considering entering some sort of a military alliance that would bolster your security?
Well, my first job was working for the NATO office, NATO Information Office in Moldova right out of college. So you don't have to explain to me the benefits of NATO membership. The sad reality in Moldova is that as a result of Soviet inertia, but also of the fact that Moldovans have allowed to live under the spell of Russian propaganda for so long, the idea of neutrality is still soothing for many citizens. And you can understand why. There are many, well, not many, several countries that have been neutral until recently and changed their mind, like Sweden and Finland, because neutrality is a soothing idea. And this is what the Kremlin propaganda is pushing in Moldova, that you are a small country, you don't attack anybody, nobody is attacking you, you have nothing to fear. But then again, you don't have to have a PhD in history to know that aggressors have never stopped at the borders of neutral countries, and you need to invest in your defenses. And we are trying to do that. We have a new national security strategy that clearly identifies the threats. We are more and more engaged with our European partners when it comes to security cooperation, and the European Peace Facility has been truly transformational for our defense, and we very much look forward to advance in that path. But it's a democratic debate in the Moldovan society. We need to have this democratic debate and to try to convince our citizens, because this cannot be done by force. You need to have the democratic discussions about the pros and cons, and it's a long process in light of the challenges that we face with Russian propaganda. But we are confident that with support that we are getting from our partners, we are becoming more resilient by the day, and the democratic debate in Moldova will continue, because, of course, it's in the interest of Moldovan citizens to have the security that all of our friends and partners enjoy in our region.
Mihai Papșoi, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Moldova, was our guest today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ukraine has no chance of joining the EU, at least not during the war. That's according to Aleksander Kwaśniewski, former Polish president, who joined us in a special edition of On the Record coming up right after World News Tonight. So stay tuned. And so this would be all for now here on World News Tonight, but please do stay tuned. As I said, we have On the Record coming up next, and you don't want to miss it.